Researchers found it takes the average person 88 days to genuinely stop hurting over a breakup, but most people sabotage that timeline without realizing it. The good news? 10 specific psychological tools can cut that time down dramatically, and one of them works in under 60 seconds. I'm Zara, and this is Zara Explains Love, your late-night debrief on why hearts do what they do. Today matters because heartbreak isn't just sad, it's neurologically similar to withdrawal, and doing the wrong thing in week 1 can double your recovery time. Let's fix that, starting at number 10. Number 10. Cutting the digital trail. Picture this. It's 11 p.m., you've told yourself you're just checking the weather, and somehow you're 3 photos deep into their account. Heart pounding. Psychologists call this checking behavior, and it works exactly like a slot machine. You never know if today's the day you'll see something painful or reassuring, so your brain keeps pulling the lever. This is intermittent reinforcement, the same mechanism that keeps people scrolling for hours. Every time you check, you re-trigger the emotional response instead of letting it fade. The fix isn't willpower, it's environment design. Mute, unfollow, or archive their contact for 30 days. Researchers studying digital breakup behavior found people who limited exposure this way reported significantly lower distress within 2 weeks, simply because their brain stopped getting fed new information to obsess over. Number 9. Naming the loss out loud. You're driving, the song they loved comes on, and suddenly your chest tightens for no clear reason. This is affect labeling, a technique from emotion regulation research showing that simply naming a feeling out loud, saying, "I feel grief right now," calms the amygdala's alarm response almost immediately. Vague pain feels bigger than pain with a name. Try this in the moment. Instead of pushing the feeling away, say it plainly, even in your head. This is sadness about losing the routine, not proof I made a mistake. Studies on emotional processing found that people who labeled feelings during distress showed measurably reduced physiological stress responses within seconds. It sounds too simple to work. It works anyway, because your brain treats a named threat as smaller than an unnamed one. Number 8. Closing the Zeigarnik Loop. Ever notice how the relationships that end mid-sentence, no real explanation, haunt you longer than the ones that ended clearly? That's the Zeigarnik effect. Our minds fixate harder on unfinished stories than finished ones. An abrupt breakup leaves your brain treating the relationship like an open tab it can't close. You replay conversations searching for the missing ending. The fix is writing your own closure letter, never sent, where you finish the story yourself. What you'd have said, what you needed to hear. Therapists who use expressive writing techniques find it gives the brain the ending it's craving, even artificially, and measurably reduces intrusive thoughts about the relationship. You're not lying to yourself, you're just finally closing the tab your brain left open. Number 7. Rewriting the highlight reel. You're lying in bed replaying the trip you took together, the way they laughed, and somehow the fights, the boredom, the small daily friction all just vanish from memory. This is rosy retrospection, a documented bias where distance makes memories glow warmer than they actually were. Your brain is quietly building a highlight reel and cutting the boring footage. The counter move is deliberate. Sit down and list the real, unglamorous parts too. The arguments about nothing, the mismatched needs, the moments you felt small. Not to trash them, just to restore balance. Grief researchers call this accurate recall training, and it consistently shortens idealization periods because you're no longer missing a fantasy, you're remembering an actual imperfect person. Quick question. When's the last time something new actually excited you? Because heartbreak doesn't just hurt emotionally, brain scans show it dims activity in your dopamine reward circuits, the same ones involved in substance withdrawal. That's why everything feels gray afterward, food, music, plans with friends, all slightly flat. This isn't laziness, it's neurochemistry recalibrating. The fix is deliberately manufacturing small, novel rewards. A new route home, an unfamiliar restaurant, a class you've never tried. Novelty specifically triggers dopamine release in ways routine doesn't, according to reward system research. You're not distracting yourself from the pain. You're literally rebuilding the reward pathways the relationship used to activate, teaching your brain that good feelings can come from somewhere new. Number 5, repairing your self-concept. You catch yourself thinking, without them, I don't even know who I am at dinner parties anymore. That's not dramatic. That's measurable. Psychologists call it self-concept confusion, and studies on breakups find people whose sense of identity had merged heavily with their partner show slower recovery and more distress. The relationship didn't just end. Part of your self-definition went with it. The fix is rebuilding identity anchors deliberately. Reconnect with interests, friendships, or routines that existed before them and belong entirely to you. Make a literal list of who you are outside the relationship. Research on self-concept clarity shows that the faster you reestablish a clear, independent identity, the faster attachment distress fades, because you're no longer grieving a missing half. You're just you again, whole. Number 4, the no-contact reset. You tell yourself staying friends will make this easier, so you keep texting, keep the birthday plans, keep half a foot in the door. Attachment researchers have found the opposite. Partial contact after a breakup actually prolongs attachment activation, keeping the bonding system switched on instead of letting it wind down. Your nervous system can't fully detach if it's still getting occasional hits of connection. A defined no-contact period, typically 30 to 60 days, gives the attachment system time to deactivate, similar to how cravings peak then fade during any withdrawal process. This isn't about punishing them or being cold. It's about giving your own biology room to reset, so that when contact does happen again, if it ever does, it isn't happening from a place of desperate need. Number 3, activating your support network. You've canceled plans with friends 3 times this month because you'd rather sit alone with the ache. It feels protective, but isolation research on heartbreak consistently shows the opposite effect. Social withdrawal after a breakup is linked to longer recovery times and higher rates of rumination. Humans are what attachment theorists call social homeostats. We regulate our nervous systems partly through other people's presence, not despite it. Every canceled coffee date is a missed chance to borrow someone else's calm. The fix is scheduling connection like medicine, not an optional extra. 1 low-effort social touchpoint a day, even a 5-minute call. Studies on post-breakup adjustment found people with consistent social contact recovered baseline mood significantly faster than those who withdrew, because co-regulation, not isolation, is what actually settles an activated nervous system. Number 2, writing to your future self. Right now, the breakup probably feels permanent, like this ache is the new normal forever. Psychologists call this the durability bias. We consistently overestimate how long negative emotions will last. The fix researchers recommend is oddly simple. Write a letter from the perspective of yourself 6 months from now, describing what life probably looks like once this has faded, based on how every other hard thing you've survived eventually did. This exercise, called temporal distancing, helps your brain borrow perspective from the future instead of staying stuck in the raw present. Studies on emotional forecasting show people who practiced this reported faster emotional recovery and less catastrophic thinking, because the exercise proves in your own handwriting that the unbearable version of now is not the permanent version of you. And number 1, the one that actually changes the story you tell yourself: meaning-making. You keep asking, why did this happen to me? And that question alone can keep you looping for months. Grief and trauma researchers found the strongest predictor of long-term recovery isn't time, isn't distraction. It's whether someone eventually reframes the loss as something that taught them something usable about their needs, their boundaries, their patterns. This is called meaning-making, and it's the single variable most closely tied to what researchers call post-loss growth. Try this literally. Finish the sentence. Because of this relationship, I now know I need. Not because the breakup was good, but because giving pain a purpose is what finally lets your brain file it as a completed chapter instead of an open wound, which is, in the end, what actually rewires you to love better next time. So here's the truth underneath all 10 of these. Healing isn't about forgetting someone. It's about giving your brain permission to stop treating the loss as unfinished business. Some of these you can start tonight: naming the feeling, muting the account, writing that letter. Tell me in the comments which one you're starting with, or which one you wish someone had told you sooner. And if this helped even a little, subscribe. Zara explains. Love drops a new one every week, and healing goes faster when you're not doing it alone.